Good evening and welcome. You're watching The Big Story on NDTV Profit and I'm Nupur Talwar Suri. Now, the market regulator, SEBI, has flagged close to 9,000 instances of misleading or unlawful posts on social media in what is being seen as the beginning of a crackdown on Finfluencer or financial influencers. Now, SEBI has called on leading platforms including Facebook, Instagram and Telegram as well as YouTube to take strict legal measures against the accounts disseminating false claims about the stock market. SEBI chairperson has also said that the new rules will combat misinformation by prohibiting associations with unregistered individuals while allowing for educational content. Let's listen in to begin with to what Madhvi Puri Buch has said.
We recently had, a regulation which we will be notifying fairly soon on this issue of Finfluencers. And as you know, and as I've articulated, that we do not have jurisdiction over just anybody, right? I mean, the fact that it's called social media, at the most granular level, it starts with me advising my brother on something, right? It starts from there. And also the platforms on which they operate, we have no jurisdiction over them. So the way that our regulation is now framed and about to be notified is that our regulated entities, people who come under us, brokers, mutual funds, exchanges, etc., they cannot have any association with entities who do these following wrong things. And what are those wrong things? Basically two. Either if you're giving investment advice when you're not registered with SEBI, or if you are making claims of performance which you are not entitled to make and not permitted to make, then these two things are not allowed. So therefore, none of our people can actually associate with them. So which means that wherever there was advertising, sponsorship, association, brand association, etc., with many of these people, which is an important source of their revenue, unless they are truly educational in nature, they will not be able to have such association from our regulated entities.
In fact, let's go across first to Charu Singh of NDTV Profit to explain to us what this really means for influencers. Hi, Charu. Break down what this could entail for Finfluencers.
The Security and Exchange Board of India had long back in the month of June only had come up with a consultation paper with regulations saying that there should be no association of regulated entities with unregistered entities, that is the financial influencers, the Finfluencers. And now people are waiting for these regulations to be notified. In fact, when the submission about the 9,000 social media posts being flagged as unlawful was submitted before the Rajya Sabha, and SEBI had said that it is reaching these social media platforms itself against these posts. Even on that day, SEBI chairperson Madhvi Buch at an NSE event had said that they are planning on notifying these regulations soon. And let's see how that plays out for the regulator.
All right, thank you very much, Charu, for joining in. We are also now joined by our partner at FinSec, Law Advisor Sandeep Parekh, and market veteran Sunil Subramanian for more insights on this. Thank you, both of you gentlemen, for joining us, and good evening. Sandeep Parekh, if I could come to you first. Now, SEBI's latest action, of course, comes as part of consistent effort that we've seen since, I think, 2023, to curtail stock and investment advice from financial influencers. What do you make of it? And is it in line with what other countries and their regulators are doing to deal with this?
Right. So, I think in terms of what SEBI is trying to do is, I think they're trying to come to grips with a phenomena which has kind of enveloped literally millions of investors, and with all these so-called influencers. And on the one side you have the freedom of speech and people's ability to say whatever they want, versus the need to kind of register people who are kind of trying to provide advice for a fee, or it's very often it's undisclosed fee. It's coming from somebody else, and the investor doesn't really know about this conflict. And of course, lots of mischievous recommendations, etc. So I think SEBI's realized that it can't go after millions of people or even tens of thousands of influencers. So they want to kind of protect their domain by saying that people within the regulated space would not be able to interact, promote, do business, do commerce with these influencers. So I think they're kind of approaching the problem from a different perspective instead of passing all these orders against thousands of people. I think that this is something which they believe they can enforce far more easily.
Right, and how do you see this in terms of what other countries are doing? Because we have seen action coming in from other regulators in other countries as well.
So I think most countries are grappling with this phenomena of in the US they're called TikTok people, and so I think it's kind of quite a common phenomena the worldwide, and I think again I think Western regulators are battling with it even more because the kind of freedom of speech they have under their constitution is far more liberal than ours as well. Ours, and therefore I think they're finding it difficult to kind of go after these people unless they're able to prove fraud, and the kind of deals, the backroom deals which these influencers are kind of getting into is not something which you can easily catch because it's happening inside people's offices, inside rooms, and therefore I think the problem is much bigger than I think the regulators have been able to digest.
Right, Mr. Subramaniam, your thoughts on SEBI now stepping in, and also just to bring some context to this conversation, the fact is that consumers seem to have a lot of trust in influencers. In fact, we'll just run those graphics for our viewers. There's a report by ASCI that suggests that 79% of consumers on the internet actually trust social media influencers. So the amount of sway they hold is quite evident, Mr. Subramaniam.
So I think that this is part of a larger problem, and I think this is one angle to it. So if you look at it, there's the derivatives trading problem, there is the actual stock trading, intraday trading problem, and then this is the actual buying of stocks through Finfluencers. So all of these are essentially coming from a fact that the mass public, in the absence of proper knowledge, has this gambling instinct, right? And they have driven by greed. And typically, if you see, I think it's started with COVID, because it's during COVID that with the lockdown and people working from home, so they had a lot more time, the explosion of the internet and Google and YouTube and everything meant access. So, and the youth of India, I think India is probably one of the youngest populations in the world. It's a combination of these three that people are just, and I would actually treat all of these three, the derivatives trading, the day trading, as well as the influence-based action, as a part of a larger desire to get rich quick in the people. Now, you mentioned that trust. Now, if he's coming from a place where he says, I want to get rich, and somebody is giving him a stock idea, which can, double in a few days. So naturally, he's happy with those people. He's trusting them because these people put up fancy charts. And one of the big problems with our industry, and not just our industry, but is the fact that there's so much jargon involved. And especially with technical analysis, there's so many head and shoulders, double top, double bottoms. So kind of jargon, and people use that. And when people get swayed, and the problem there is actually financial literacy. People don't have any knowledge about the intricacies of the stock market and what happens. And on top of it, the problem, you refer to other countries. Now, the difference between other countries and India is the very low liquidity of our market. You see, the BSE 500 or the NSE 500 index, it's a 500 stock index, right? Top 100 companies account for 74% of the market cap. The balance 400 are just 25%. And what about the balance 5,000 other stocks? So most of these influencers don't deal with these large caps or larger mid caps. They're dealing with the micro caps, penny stocks, telling them it's a get rich quick scheme, it's a Ponzi scheme. So I think what SEBI is doing is, I think, very, very good. And they're approaching it in a way where these, see, actually, if you see, nobody can give advice without registering with SEBI. That's very simple. So all these influencers who are advising people to buy stocks are actually in violation of SEBI. The problem for SEBI is, internet is an open world. Facebook and Google and YouTube and Telegram and WhatsApp. They cannot use the police force to go and arrest all these people and put them in jail. Well, technically they can. So that's why SEBI is going through this by two things, right? One is they are circulating the media, WhatsApp, Facebook. They are trying to get them to not allow these kind of things to happen. Now, none of them are headquartered in India. They're all foreign thing. The extent to which SEBI's regulation has an impact, I think there's a lot of influence which will need to be used. And I think the IT and Telecom Ministry will also get involved. But that's one way to make sure, because when you get to other kinds of content like porn or political or terrorist content, the country is able to get these websites to stop and control that. So I think similarly, if these kind of stock advices can be stopped at that level, that'd be wonderful. We'll have to see the progress they make. The second, of course, is registered entities. And like the chairman's speech you saw just now, what he said is these people offer their services free to customers very often because they're getting financed by a regulated entity who is using them as a kind of an investor expansion program, saying if these guys come in, then maybe we can tap them to come into our business, whether it's brokers or mutual funds or whatever. So I think cutting off that chain of income for these influencers is a very significant step. And I think as and when those regulations are actually notified, you will find that a big source of income will dry up for these. Now, that being said, right, you can see that the large increase in demat accounts. I think today we have 15 crore demat accounts, but there are only 5 crore mutual fund investors. So clearly, as you can see, mutual funds, which are a vehicle for long-term wealth creation, have only 1/3 the penetration of somebody who wants to get rich quick through stocks. So I think clearly one of the other things is to do financial literacy. And I think SEBI, along with the National Stock Exchange, they have a Patal Ganga facility. I think literacy of the people, making them understand that stock market can be a powerful wealth creation tool, but it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. And I think that gambling mentality which is driving people, I think we have to tackle that at the root. So I would say some more regulation, some more action on the financial literacy front will be also expected in the coming days.
Absolutely. Mr. Parekh, just touching upon what Mr. Subramaniam said, while, SEBI can put in place a framework largely to deal with this, do you think that some of this burden of educating these first-time investors should actually also lie with brokerages and investment advisories and so on and so forth? Because they also, a large number of them also associate themselves with these financial influencers.
No, so I think that's of course part of the solution. But I think the real bigger picture is that we are not talking about idiots, right? They're not fools. They just want to gamble money. I mean, we've seen the statistics twice over now from SEBI. 89% of them are losing money. Yet they continue. So I don't think they want to learn really. They want to kind of gamble. And, if you bar them from one thing, they'll probably start doing something else, maybe go into sports gambling or buy some lottery ticket from one of the states which allows. So, I think it's coming from there. It's not coming from, poor literacy really or poor financial education. So, it has to be handled at a cultural level as well and not just as seen as a kind of an uneducated, illiterate people.
Right. Mr. Subramaniam, any final thoughts on what he's saying? Because there are many arguments being made against SEBI's action in various places, saying that this is a free market economy and we should let people learn on their own. So any final thoughts on that?
Yes, there's another overarching thing which is there in SEBI's mind here, apart from the people getting misled and doing these things. That is that these influencers, right, are probably also being influenced by insiders. So this pump and dump you would have heard of, right? So what these influencers are also doing, right, is to pump a stock up and then dump it when these retail investors buy it. Now, some retail investors will make money because they would have bought it and sold it, but those who hold on make a loss. But that's a very severe thing because that's insider trading being expanded through these thousands of influencers. So I think there's a larger issue which also SEBI is trying to solve here is this pump and dump strategy of influencers where they're actually probably acting as the arm of people who want to do insider trading are pumping the stocks, dumping them and making profits. And that's a huge criminal thing. And that's also, I think, something that SEBI will go after and wants to go after. And shutting this tap has another reason there, which is to stop the spread of this kind of insider trading, so to speak, in a pump and dump manner.
Right, absolutely. So you feel that this is part of a larger racket as well. Both of you, thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast. Well, it's time for a very short break, but do stay with us as on the other side, we get you all the action from the Olympics.